Hi everyone, this is the learning evidence of stage 4. This is team number 1 and our team is formed by Carolina Alcalá, Jared Álvarez, Pedro Ávila, Oscar Barajas, Mariana Briones, and me, Miranda Bernal.
The economic impact in a city in central Mexico. The investigation was carried out about the economic changes in the city of Querétaro, Mexico, prior to the events of the independence and the consequences that result in the struggle to form a country in the 19th century. It covers from the year 1750 to 1850. The technique that they used were documentary with a historical approach, and the source of information that were more used were the primary sources. The graph shows how the economy before independence, during the colonial era, saw the mechanisms to make possible the recovery of the three key sectors of the economy: agriculture, industrial, and commercial. However, after this time the economy could not return to reach the bigness that it held. Only in the last years of the 19th century, in the so-called Porfirian era, they reached similar levels, but never equal to those of the past. The struggle for independence on the one hand and the successive civil wars afterwards were the main cause of the end of property. The desire to achieve political freedom was not constrained with the stability necessary for the good development of the economy. In the territory of Querétaro, the process was linked at least in the 18th century to the exercise as a merchant or laborer, and that allowed him to acquire wealth, social prestige, by investigating in land and entering the world of politics in the Cabildo and in the local and national congress.
Education approach. Can students' attributional patterns explain their failure in language? In the article, the main objective of our study is to investigate the relationship between the attributional patterns of high school students with school failure and performance in the area of language and literatures. The technique they used was FILES and is directly related to direct observation with the experiment and data collection from immediate contact. This technique was applied to 15 students between 14 and 15 years old with a marked school failure in previous years during a tutoring session. The instrument on which they were based was the Questionnaire of Attribute Styles, EAT, proposed by Alonso Sanchez in 1992. The questionnaire is of collective and individual application, and its approximate time is 45 minutes, and its purpose is to evaluate the attribute patterns in the file of interpersonal relationship and academic achievements. It has a comparative approach because it compares the variables between interpersonal relationship and academic achievements, in addition to comparing some results based on gender, that is boys and girls. These are the results. Conclusions. The results indicated the existence of gender difference in academic causal attributions, although in general of small magnitude. The data revealed the attribution to effort, low or high, is the most significant variables. In our study, we can conclude, analyzing the motivation by sex, that adolescents perceive their failure more linked to lack of effort than their male peers, despite the fact that their academic results are generally much better than theirs. Since women mature before men, and this makes them reach in adolescence better levels of academic performance and a greater maturity in terms of international attributions, stable and controlled than their peers of different sex. Regarding the second objective, we observe that in coherence with the data obtained by sex attribution to effort, but success and failure is once again one of the most important variables. In any case, most of the predict variables show internal uncontrollable attributional patterns, but for the explanation of failure and success. The results are attributed to Weiner's attributional theory.
Psychology example approach. The problem to be highlighted, in which is case of concern in the research, is that more than half of the sector surveyed by the group of researchers, young people between 12 and 17 years old, had a smoking habit or at some point smoked, with a higher percentage in high school, with 68.4%. The research shows that the factor that leads adolescents to take these actions results in poor school performance are social influences, mainly through social network and the structure between the relationship with close friends. To collect information, a field research was conducted by going to the different schools selected by the researchers, in which a questionnaire was applied to 486 students, taking 45 minutes, with a total of 30 questions for different sections, which includes tobacco consumption at sometimes and current consumption, information to build the school social network, name and sex of the 6 best friends at school, aspect of social influences, socio-demographic aspects, sex, ages, accommodation, and school levels. These are results, and we can see both tables shows active users and those who have ever smoked. As we can see, the left chart is of those who smoke to the social network influence, while the right is of those who are smokers to the social influence, and as we can see, the results show higher rates to the social influence. So the conclusion is that the method that was the file method assigns a personality went to each school to carry out the questionnaire, thus giving a quantitative and qualitative methods results, saying a description is made of what happens with high school adolescents when smoking, in addition to describing how the questionnaire was being used to interact, transforming the results to qualitative data for graphing by adding up the score obtained. What come to be discussed was the student who used or smoked tobacco had greater popularity than non-smokers. Also, that those who smoke have less communication to the school network, thus seeking the approval of those who have greater popularity to be part of a group or to attract the opposite sex.
Comparative approach. LGBTQ discrimination in Germany, Portugal, and the UK. This article will investigate acts of discrimination, harassment, and violence by people from the LGBTQ community in the countries of Germany, Portugal, and the UK. A survey was carried out in these 3 countries where it can be observed how discrimination based on sexual preference is less likely to suffer some type of harassment. The 3 countries of the study show some small difference in the probability of suffering discrimination, harassment, and violence according to the different categories of sexual orientation and gender identity. The results show that trans people are more at risk of suffering the aforementioned in comparison to gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. But it can also be observed how in the countries of Germany and the UK it is more accepted than in Portugal. These are the results of the survey, and the country comparison shows that the predicate probabilities for violence are the highest for trans individuals in Germany and the UK, while gay men seem to be more likely to experience violence than trans individuals in Portugal, although this difference is not insignificant. Overall, LGBT individuals in the UK are the most likely to experience violent incidents on average.
Critical rational. This article seeks to explain what critical rationalism is by looking at some of the ideas that the father of critical rationalism, Karl Popper, showed us on this subject, as well as the ideas of their followers of this subject. The methodology that he used in the writing of the article was quantitative, and the technique used for this article was documentary. Results. The results show that thanks to this type of thinking, the critical rationalism that was initially used in the natural science to investigate both physical and natural phenomena came to be used in the social science. Critical rationalism consists in acquiring a more critical attitude towards fully established theories in science. Scientific knowledge is obtained thanks to the mental acquisition of a series of general principles from which its main ideas are deduced.
Social skills approach. Social skills training for children with autism. This article summarizes current life on social skills training for children and adolescents with autism spectrum disorders. The article describes several different methods of social skill training, along with a summary of the research finding on effectiveness. Described intervention include social skills groups, parenting mentoring, training, and social stories. The results in the article also describes information on accessing social skills training service and concludes with future instruction and recommendation for pediatricians. The technique is exploratory because it's necessary to go and observe the attitude of the children and how they relate.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
attention.